Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Nirvana Dragon Empire deck profile for post-Festival Collection 2022. With the latest Festival Collection, we got some pretty good support to, further the power of the Nirvana deck, being able to get out the grade for Nirvana that much faster onto the field, and utilizing some of the new triggers that we got from the latest booster set as well. I've also been mixing around some of the numbers for the Nirvana deck since the last update, which was post BTO4, so I figured the deck was definitely due for a deck profile update. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the ride deck, still sticking to the Sunrise Egg for the draw. I just like it more than the initial setup for the Trickstar. I most of the time can get the one from the ride deck target and then just draw into the next one with the draw power you have in the deck. The grade 1 being Blaze Maiden Reno, which when you rode over Blaze Maiden Reno with Rayu, you can search out for a Trickstar and call it onto the field, setting up your Overdress, which is the main play of the deck. I've done plenty of Overdress deck profiles, so most of you should know that is the main play of the deck. And with Rayu, when rode over a grade 3 Nirvana, you can search your deck for a Virina and add to your hand, which is just one of the grade 2s that has a pretty good power plus for the Overdress play. Needing just the one Nirvana for the ride deck. I don't actually run any more in the main deck, with the only other Nirvana that I run being the grade 4 Chakravarthi True Dragon Mahar Nirvana. I run 4 copies of this card. With this card, during your turn, if you have a unit with Overdress, your front row gets plus 10,000, making up for the Persona ride with this card's initial power, and also being able to, on the Vanguard Circle once per turn, counter plus 1, put a card with Nirvana and its card name from your hand or soul into the drop zone, to then choose a grade 0 from your drop zone, call it to rear, and then choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and deal 1 damage to it if they have 4 or less damage. So with this play, you can set up some more pressure against your opponent, meaning that they only have that option available to them, putting at them at 5 damage, and then being able to swing with all your other units. If you have the Overdress units, you're able to set up a Trickstar on the field as well, to then go for your Overdress right then and there that you set up with the Mahar Nirvana. And the new card we have from the Festival Collection just helps to make this play that much more quickly. For the other grade 4 in the deck, I run 3 of the Virina Esperidea. It has the Overdress for Trickstar, meaning you have to Overdress on top of Trickstar to use it. When this card's placed on rearguard, if it is Overdress, you put a Trickstar cards and all Overdress card abilities from your drop zone into its original dress. And on rear, once per turn, when your Vanguard attacks, you can Soul Blast 1, stand this unit, and it gets plus 5,000 until the end of turn for each of this unit's original dress. So with this card's original dress, you can hit some pretty big numbers, depending on when and how you had set up in the drop zone for this card, being able to hit those numbers and be your 4th attack for the turn, re-standing after your Nirvana attack. So along with the plus 10 that it'll get being an Overdress, being 23 on its own, you can re-stand it and then just hit for even more immense numbers against your opponent with it. For the grade 3s, I run 2 Virina Expecta. You Overdress on top of a unit in the Overdress state, so you can't use Trickstar just for this card. And this card gets the original dress power for the original power of its original dress. And when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if this unit is in the Overdress state, counter plus 1, it gets plus 5 in a critical until the end of the turn. And at the end of the battle, put all of this unit's original dress into the drop zone. So the option for the original dress can give you some pretty good power, but if you want to invest in the additional critical and pressure, that could be the other spot. You'll just lose all the original dress of this card and just have a grade 3 on rearguard afterwards, with more of the pressure also coming in the form of Virina Valiente, running 2 of this card as well. It gets plus 5 for each of this unit's original dress, and on rearguard once per turn, when this unit, when the attack of this unit in the Overdress state hits, counter plus 1, discard a card from your hand and stand this unit. And you can either Overdress on top of Trickstar or a grade 3 or less unit in the Overdress state with this card. For the grade 2s for draw power, we're still running the 4 Virina Arcs, just with a counterblast of 1. When you Overdress on top of Trickstar with this card, draw 2 cards and gets plus 5,000, being a 15k pressure unit if you do Overdress on your grade 2 ride phase. And for the last grade 2, just the 1 Virina. I feel that 1 is all you need. There is a risk that you will damage this card and not get the search for your Rayu when you ride on top of Nirvana, but still, it comes in handy being able to at least have that search, but otherwise, you really don't need much for this card. Arc is a much better draw power search, so this is just here as a free Overdress unit to add to your hand. And then for the grade 1s, for the new grade 1, we're running 2 of the new Blaze Maiden Amelia. I thought of running more of this card. It really is a situational card. It depends on when you open up this card, because if you go first, it really doesn't do anything. It can help to, speed up your Nirvana play. If you have a Vanguard with Nirvana, your opponent has to be at grade 3 though. So if you ride your grade 3 first, this card won't do anything until your opponent has a grade 3, meaning I guess there's the chance that you could draw into the Virena arcs into the Mahar Nirvana you need for that play. Then you can use it then if it wasn't just on the top deck draw for your turn to ride into the grade 4. You can at least see it a little more quickly later on during the same turn and use Amelia. But the situation comes for the fact that you want to go into your grade 4 on the same turn you go into your grade 3 and your opponent's at grade 3, meaning you can have your Mahar Nirvana to then use against your opponent that much more quickly for the pressure play on your first grade 3 ride. Now you can increase the number of your Amelia in the deck if you were to do so. I also run 2 Blaze Maiden Ximena for the Overdress Search and the Retsuji for the Overdress Recycle. From the graveyard, being able to choose an Overdress from your drop zone, put it into your hand if your Vanguard's grade 4, countercharge, and then just being able to check top 7 for a counterblast with Ximena. You can drop the numbers of these cards for the additional amounts you may want to use. You can even go for the option of making Trickstar your starter to set it up in the drop zone to use, but then if you were to do so, you would have the one less spot in the main deck, and that can be another spot to put at your Amelia for a 3 of count. I really don't like 4 though. It happens where you can use it multiple times since Mahar Nirvana is a once per turn. So if you ride on top of another Mahar Nirvana using Amelia, you can use the newly ridden one for the retire effect as well. But the ability will come down to just if you have that setup and your opponent is at a grade 3. And then for the rest of the grade 1s, just the 4 Twin Buckler Dragon, the Sentinel of choice, since when it's guarded, if you have 1 or less cards in hand, you don't have to discard for the cost of the Sentinel, meaning if you have 1 other Sentinel, you can at least keep it in your hand to save for the additional attack your opponent may try to swing against you, especially if they get an overtrigger and give the 100 million to their rear guard. And then moving on now to the grade 0s, our first non-trigger grade 0 and only is Trickstar. This unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, so very good for the prison deck, since if you just have a Trickstar set up on the field, they can't choose it to place into the prison or even retire with your opponent's card effects, and it's needed for all your Overdress plays. Searchable off of Rio, so then you just have this sitting on the field, and it all comes down to what you want to use and draw into for the additional Overdress plays you'll go for. For the trigger lineup, I run the 8 criticals, so 4 of the Blaze Maiden Zone and 4 of the Burning Flail Dragon for the additional soul play and power up to your units. For the draw triggers, I run 3 of the Flare Veil Dragon for the additional +5 shield. I thought of running the front trigger with the grade 4 setup, but still need some of that hand consistency. That's why I like to keep the draws in there. And I also run now for the heals 2 of the Blaze Maiden Rona for the 15k shield and the situations that some of the other heals that we run do help, but you want to have them more for the additional options. So with the Stealth Fiend Amaviera, if your opponent's unit restood, it gets +15. And with the new Cure Flare Draco Kid, if your opponent's unit has an additional critical, it gets the +15 shield. So you have the options for additional shields with both of these heals, but they do only have 10,000 original shield, making it a little smaller than your Roa on the field to use for the guard powers. I feel these numbers are fine for you to use in the deck against your opponent's overdress cards. And then lastly, for the overtrigger, just the Dragveda for the restand power of your Nirvana. It's incredible pressure for the 100 million and for the fact that your Vanguard will just be restanding again for another attack. And then as for some of the go-to plays, like I said, if you're on the grade 3 Nirvana and your opponent is at a grade 3 as well, you on the same turn you ride into the grade 3, you can use Amelia for the counterblasts, putting into the soul and choosing a Nirvana from your hand to ride, putting you at the grade 4 that much more quickly against your opponent. If you went first against your opponent and you're at the grade 3 and then your opponent goes into a grade 3, you can at least go for the Amelia play after you go into the grade 4 from your hand, using the initial Mahar Nirvana for the Soul Blast, dealing damage to your opponent. You can then use the Amelia to ride another Mahar Nirvana from your hand, and since it's a new Mahar Nirvana, you can use the Soul Blast of this one for the once per turn to, if as long as your opponent isn't at 5 or more damage, deal 2 damage in 1 turn against your opponent with this new Mahar Nirvana, thanks to the Amelia setup if you have those cards in your hand ready to go. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. It's a really fun deck and definitely one of my favorites from the Overdress or D format. So with this new support, it just adds for the sped up pressure that the Nirvana deck is meant to do. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Qualia out.